Hey guys, welcome to another weekly focus. So there's a few pairs we have to look at today, or there's a few opportunities we have to look at today. But before looking at those opportunities, I'm going to show you guys the trades we had this week. And I think this week has really been a good one compared to last week when we had a couple of losses. So I'm going to show you guys like a trade recap real quick. And I just want to tell you like real quick, when it comes to indices, say the S&P, NAS, US30, these are pairs I've really tested for a very long time, and I've gathered a lot of information on these pairs. So my confidence when trading these pairs is really high compared to any other pair there, say even gold or say Forex pairs. So I've tested indices for a very long time now, and I think my confidence on these pairs is just on another level. So even when I take losses on these pairs, it's easy for me to come back, reanalyze, and then just get a correction of what I did wrong, and then get the direction right again. So let's start with NAS100. So this week we're currently running, say, about 5 to 6% on across these pairs. So let's look at NAS, like the first one. So this was on the 12th of August, and I had a buy idea on NAS. So we took a buy around this point, and right now this trade is currently running, and I haven't closed it. So the trade is currently running at about 2.49%. I haven't closed this yet because I just kept the tag, like it has an open targeting, so it's still running. And then I have the S&P one as well on the same day as well, on the 12th of August. I had this buy on the S&P, sorry. So when you look at the S&P, and as I always say this, the S&P and NAS100, it's always easy for me to trade these pairs because there's like this correlation. It moves almost the same, so they have similar movements. So when I see an opportunity on NAS, it's almost similar to what I see on the S&P. So I had a buy on the S&P as well, and right now we're currently running at about 2.72% on this NAS position. So this is open as well. There's no target on this. I just want to see how price keeps moving, and then I'll reevaluate and see see when it's possible for me to close the trade or hold it for an extended run. So let's look at, so those were two wins, or those are wins, those are trades where I'm currently profitable in. But let's look at one I took a loss on, and this is on gold. So on the 15th of August, I had a sell opportunity on gold right here, and this just closed like it took me out today. So this closed at -1%. So I'm currently running, say, 2.49 on NAS, 2.72 on the S&P, and -1% on gold. So I think it's a pretty good week, and let's just see how price plays out. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys what we have in, say, for next week. But let's start with the DXY, because for I think for 2 weeks now the DXY hasn't been in sync with most of these pairs, like the indices and gold and even crypto pairs. I think the only pairs which had like a sync with the DXY, you had Forex pairs, so the correlations were really working properly. But when you came to like indices and gold, it was a little bit difficult for me to have this sync. So, but I think as of now everything seems to have settled down. So let's do a quick analysis on the DXY, and I'll start from my highest time frame, which is a daily time frame. I'm just going to let's zoom in on this one. So this one I was looking at on the DXY. I think for last week I was expecting prices to have an inability around here, and then long term for me on the DXY was to see prices moving to the upside. So that was the buys I had for next week, but then we had a temporal buy to like 103, and that was it. So price just stopped at 103, and right now price seems to be retracing down. So I'm going to expand this, and then we'll just go deep, and I'll zoom in on this, and then we'll see what's actually happening, and then we'll step down, say, to the 4 hours and eventually the 1 hour time frame, and see what's happening on these time frames to help us understand where the DXY is most likely going to move to. So I'm just going to zoom in on this pair right here. So right now we're trading from 103. So if you look at the movement that came in, so we had these sells that came in. There was a massive sell. It was impulsive as well. You look at the buys that came in. These buys came in like and saying a correction. It wasn't as impulsive as the sales that came in. So when I was looking at this and knowing that we came to an area like 103, we had sellers reacting at 103. It was difficult for sellers to put in a low at this point or to even test an area like 102. And then we had the buyers coming in, and now these buyers bought, and we had a rejection again at 103. So this is telling me two things. But overall buyers on the DXY, again, I think long term is still for prices to move to the upside. But then for these prices to move to the upside, there's a couple of things that need to happen, or there's a couple of things I need to see on the daily time frame, the 8 hour, 4 hours, and eventually the hourly time frame. So as of now, this is what I'm looking at. So if the sellers are in control, like right now, where is the most likely point price is going to navigate to? So if we're rejecting from 103, and then the most likely area price can move to is 102. So I'm going to pay attention to what's happening here, because in as much as we're having sellers coming in, this can be very tricky. There's a possibility for us to test an area like this and even test 102, and then we see massive rejections at this point. So this is something I'll be looking out for, say next week. I just want to understand, like I'm looking for something that tells me there's an inability for these sales to move to the downside. So if these sales keep coming in and we find it difficult to go past an area like this and even to test an area like 102, then the initial buyers I had on the DXY for prices to go to the upside still holds. So however, let's say the sellers come in really impulsively. So let's say we sat and then this sales that's coming in, it takes out this area and it makes a new low, and it probably takes out 102. So if we see an impulsive sell like this, then it switches everything up, because once you have an impulsive sell that comes in and it makes new lows, it's similar to what's happening here. You have sales coming in, you have a pullback, and you have this lows taken out. You had sales coming in, we've had a pullback again, and we're having these lows taken out. So that's if these lows get taken out, then I'll be looking at an area like, say, the next area would probably be like, say, 101. That's the next area for me. But if this sales come in and it's still difficult for them to take out this area, I'm just going to zoom in real quick. Alright, cool. So if the sales come in again and it's difficult for them to take out these lows, so an area like this, then it's just telling you one thing. It's telling you the buyers are probably going to step in again to see prices moving to the upside. The next target for me is going to be 103, and after that I'm looking at an area like 104. So it just depends on what is going to happen once the sellers come in. Alright, so we'll probably step down to lower time frames and see. I'm going to clean this, and we'll step down to lower time frames and see if there's anything that makes sense, or if there's anything that can help us analyze or get the buyers on the DXY correct. So let's look at the 8 hour time frame here just to see what's happening. So I'm looking at these rejections that came in at 103. So we had price pulling up to 103, we had a consolidation here, we had sellers coming in. This looked like buyers were stepping in. There was a massive rejection at this point, inability for buyers to take prices above 103, and now sellers are coming in. So there's not a lot that you can say it's happening on the 8 hour time frame. All you see is just sellers coming in. Now the next area, as I told you, the first area I'm looking at is this low. So I'm asking myself simple questions like, would the sellers be able to take out an area like this? So if they take out this area, then the next area I'm looking at is 102. So 102, this psychological level, and these lows, these are the closest points I'm looking at. And just in terms of probability, price should most likely test an area like this and this psych level. But if these sellers find it difficult to break through these lows or to break through 102, then we could expect buyers to come in and take prices to the upside again. So another possibility could be sellers coming in impulsively and have a test of 102, and you see a massive rejection from the buyers, giving you say a wick at this point. So you might see a candle like this with a massive wick. So that's a possibility as well. And if I see something like this, then you could probably say there's a rejection from the buyers, and we'll see prices going to the upside. And as I said before, back on the daily time frame, if this comes in impulsively, say we'll see sellers coming in like this, then this is a different story. So if we break out of this area impulsively, then it's a different story. It means the sales are like the selling pressure is just higher compared to the buying pressure. So if this comes in impulsively, you see a massive sell candle taking out this lows, taking out this psychological level, then it could be an opportunity for us to see prices headed to like the next psychological level, which is 101. So there's something I'm looking out for. So I'm just going to step down to the 4-hour time frame, and let's see. So let's look at a 4-hour time frame. I think this is going to be like pretty much the same with what's happening on the 8-hour time frame, but there's something I can look at here, and we'll probably look at it on the hourly time frame. So if you look in here, this seems to be like a trend. It's not clearly seen on the 4-hour time frame, but you might look at it from the hourly time frame, and you probably see there's a possibility that there was a trend building up here, and if this is a break of this trend and a test of this psychological number of 103, we should expect the next area to be 102, and I'm still looking at these lows right here. So these are all possibilities coming into next week. So I'm just going to step down to the hourly. Yeah, so it's not a proper trend because you have price moving up, pull back, and then move like this. So yeah, you can look at it as a trend, but this is just like, this is a tiny piece of that puzzle. So I'm not really focused on something like this. I'll look at the daily one more time. So when you look at the daily time frame, just ask yourself a simple question: what's actually happening on the daily time frame? You can put a trend line like this on your daily time frame. So if you trade using trend lines, this is a good example right here. So you have your trend line. So we had prices moving to the downside. We had a test of this, we had this area taken out, we had prices moving to the upside. We didn't get a test of this trend properly. We had prices moving down using this psychological level, and prices moving again to the downside. So if we see an inability at this point and an inability to go below 102, we could see buyers coming in to take out this trend line. You probably see sellers giving us this pullback for a possible move to the upside. So that's a game plan for me on the DXY. I think it's pretty straightforward, and there's nothing like I can't explain further than this. That's all I'm saying. So again, if it comes in, say the sellers come in impulsively and we get a break like this, an impulsive break to the downside, then we could expect prices to pull back and keep testing this trend line, testing the psychological level of say 102, and for prices to move to the next level, which is say 101. So this is a possibility. If sellers come in impulsively, we could see prices coming back, giving us a test of this psychological level of 102, combining this with the trend line, and you see prices moving to the downside to test 101. If this doesn't happen, as I said before, if we get that inability right here, if we get an inability for prices to go past these lows and this psychological level, we could see buyers coming in. We see a break of this or the violation of this trend line. We see like a pullback coming in, and you see prices moving to the upside. And we're looking at areas like 103, 104, and possibly like move to the upside as well. So those are all possibilities coming into next week. So that's it for the DXY. So I'm going to keep this. So my initial buyers on the DXY, as I told you, I'm looking for those inabilities here and a break of this, and to see prices moving to the upside. That's long term for me on the DXY. So first possibility, a move to the upside. Second possibility, a continuation to the downside. All right, so let's look at other pairs and see if this information can help us when trading other pairs. So let's do a quick look on say US30. All right, so the first thing I'm going to ask myself on US30, So I'm looking at it from the daily time frame. Now there's no trend, there's no recent trend. So this is the trend we had, I think last week or a couple of weeks back. We had this trend line we was working with, and it was quite easy because if price was moving like this is easy for you to anticipate the buys. But when you look at what's happening right now, there's no trend that you can work with. So we had sellers coming in impulsively, we had price reacting at 39,000, and we've had buyers coming in impulsively as well. So now this is the tricky part about this. So what happens when there is no trend line on the daily time frame? And this is something I also tell the people I'm working with. I say, if there's no trend on the daily time frame, then it's difficult to get your buyers. If this is the biggest time frame you're looking at, it's always important you get a trend that you're working with, say from the daily time frame, if that's the highest time frame you're looking at, or if you're working say with the weekly or the monthly, you're looking for a trend on this higher time frame, so you can now step down to lower time frames and look for entries or pullbacks. So on the daily time frame, there's no trend we're working with, but then we can use another principle, which is just psychological levels. If price goes through one psychological level, you should look at the next psychological level, and that's where price is most likely going to head to. So we left from say 39,000, which was an area like this, and just looking at it like eyeballing, yeah, you've had prices moving from 39,000, it moved to 40,000. There wasn't any rejection at 40,000. We've not even had a pullback coming in to test 40,000, and it's just telling you like this buying pressure is really high on these indices right now, and it just goes along to it aligns properly with what's happening on the DXY. So you have the DXY selling crazily, like you had this rejection at 103 and the DXY is selling. So it's not surprising when you see the buys coming in on US30 like this, or this index is like really impulsive like this. So the next area I'm looking at is 41,000. So if you've not gotten in on this trade right now, it might be difficult to hop in because the risk to reward and everything might not be that favorable for you. But the next area I'm looking at on US30 is 41,000, this area right here. There's no trend line for me to work with on the daily time frame, and that's why I'm going off of the other principle, which is just psychological levels. So price went through 40,000 and now we're headed to 41,000, and there's a possibility because of how impulsive these buys are coming in, we might be taking out these highs. We might take out these highs and see prices testing maybe 42,000. This like this area right here. So that's like long term, but in the meantime, the area I'm looking at is 41,000, this side level, and I'm looking at these highs right here. So I'm asking simple questions like, how is price going to react at say 41,000, this psychological level? We didn't have any reaction at 40,000. We had a reaction at 39,000, which was an inability for price to go past this area. For us, like price went through this area, but it didn't stay below this area for us to move to like 38,000 and see prices going lower. So if we had buyers coming in, and they're coming in very impulsively and aggressive as well. So I'm looking at an area like 41,000. I want to see how price is going to react at this point. If we see prices moving again to the upside, I want to see how price is going to react once we get to these highs. So if price comes through 41,000 impulsively as well, then we might see a break of this and we see prices going up, and the next level I'm looking at is 42,000. This an area like this. So I need to take this step by step, so I'm not trying to anticipate say 3 months in the future. I'm just trying to look at say next week what's price most likely going to do. If we didn't have a reaction at 40,000, the next area I'm looking at is 41,000. There's also a possibility if we go down to lower time frames and we see a trend that is building up here, then all we have to do is wait for pullbacks that's coming in, and we'll see how we can take buys and just continue with this momentum that's moving to the upside. So I'm going to clean this and then we'll step down to lower time frames, and I'll see. The first time frame I'm going to look at is the 8-hour time frame. So let's look at the 8-hour time frame real quick. Alright, so we have the 8-hour time frame right here. on US30. So let's see, if I put a trend line here, there's not the best trend line because the pullbacks are not that visible. Like, you can't really appreciate the pullbacks on this pair, on the 8-hour time frame, sorry. But I think when you step down to like the 4-hour time frame and you look at areas like this where you have this minuscule like consolidations, this is clearly, like, you can see this clearly on the 4-hour time frame and the hourly time frame. And maybe areas like this will probably give you things like consolidation. So you have price moving up, there's a consolidation, price moving up, there's a consolidation. And I look at these consolidations the same way I look at pullbacks. So if price is moving to the upside, you can get a pullback, you say continuation to the upside, or you get price moving to the upside, you get a consolidation, you see price moving to the upside. So either way, it's just a continuation for me. So let's look at this. So on the 8-hour time frame, this is what I'm looking at. You had price moving to the upside, there's a consolidation right here, there's another consolidation here, there's somewhat of a consolidation here, there's a consolidation here, break, and a continuation. So looking at this, going off of what we're looking at on the daily time frame, I'm still expecting prices to test for a 1000 and to at least test these highs and probably see prices even go higher than this. But then the first area I'm looking at for a 1000 and these highs. So we still have an opportunity to get buys coming in, so we can take buys and just continue with this trend that is moving to the upside. And this is what I'm seeing from the 8-hour time frame. If price keeps giving me this, say this price action, you get some sort of a consolidation like so, this could be an opportunity for us to buy. On a lower time frame we could see something, but that's a trade that's not going to take time for us to play with. So I'm going to step down to the 4-hour time frame and let's see. I need the trend line on the 4-hour time frame, so let's put this. I'll get this on the 4 hours, maybe the hourly as well. All right, so on the 4-hour time frame, this is what I'm looking at. So if price is moving to the upside, I need an opportunity for me to an opportunity to join the buys. So all I'm looking for is, say, a pullback to come in. If I get a pullback to an area like this and price doesn't go through this area, then I'm looking for possibilities to buy. And this area I'm looking at for a 1000. So this is, I'm just going over what's happening on the daily time frame. I'm going over what's happening on the DXY. So if this sells continue, then we could look for possibilities to buy and keep holding these buys to test an area like for a 1000 and to test an area like this. So these are all possibilities as well. I'm going to look at, say, the hourly time frame. Keep this clean, and on the hourly time frame is the same thing. So the same thing I'm looking at on the 4-hour time frame is the same thing I'm looking at on the hourly time frame. So if we can see these consolidations coming in, test of this trend line, consolidation coming in, test of the trend line, consolidation coming in. We didn't really have a test of this trend line. We had a consolidation, we had a break, prices moving up. If we get a consolidation again, get a test of this area, this for me is a buy. So this can give you maybe like a 1:2 or 1:3, just depending on what you're looking at. Something like this. Yep. And this right here is a 1:2.87. and put this 1:2.39. And if you're looking at, say, an area like this, so the most recent high, and this is almost a 1:5. So if we get our stops even here, just for security, that's a 1:3.52. So there's still a lot that we can do on US30. There's still possibilities for us to get buys on US30, but for us to get these buys on US30, we need price to pull back to this trend line, and we need to see the DXY selling impulsively again to the downside, and that's the only way we can take say buys on these other pairs. So we need pullbacks to come in. So that's it for US30, and let's look at NAS100. So with NAS100, I'm still holding this buys on NAS100. So first of all, yeah, price reacted at 18,000 and it's quite similar to what's happening on US30 and the S&P. We had price reacting at 18,000, massive rejection from the buyers, and we had price going through 19,000. There's no test at 19,000 like right now, but there's a possibility as well. When price goes through one side number, we could probably get a test of this side number to see prices moving again to the upside. That's one possibility. Another possibility could simply be a continuation of this to the upside, and that's if we have a trend that is already building up, say on the 8-hour time frame. Price can respect that trend and we see prices moving up to 20,000. So I'm going to step down to, so before stepping down to the 8-hour time frame, what's the overall bias for me, or the long-term look for me on NAS100? So I'm looking at areas like 20,000 and even higher than this. So I'm looking at this recent highs, or I'm looking at these highs right here, and there's a possibility for us to see NAS buying to an area like this. So this is very interesting, because once this prices on indices start moving in the direction, it follows through with that direction unless you have something major really impacting this pair. So I'm still expecting this buys to continue, but there's also a possibility for us to get pullback. So once this pullbacks come in, it's also an opportunity for us to get scaling, so to look for new trading opportunities as well. And if you didn't get in on this one, so I think I have a buy position on NAS100, and I didn't even get in at the perfect price. I got in a little bit late, but I'm still holding this one. So let's look at the 8-hour time frame. So looking at the 8-hour time frame, there's a trend here, and it's similar to what's happening on US30. So we have a trend here. So I'm going to respect this trend on the 8-hour time frame, and if price keeps respecting this trend line, so we had this area taken out, some sort of a consolidation, we're still having a consolidation here. If price doesn't break out of this trend line, then I'm still respecting prices to buy to an area like 20,000, and there's also a possibility for us to at least test these highs right here. That's 2,800. So there's still this, we still have a lot to do. So there's this area for us to play to, and there's still this possibility for us to get to an area like this. So long term for me on NAS100 is to see prices moving to the upside, but then we could have temporary pullbacks coming in. So let's say this trend line on the 8-hour time frame gets violated, and then it's going to be a pause for me. So I'm going to hold on with these buys if this gets violated, and I see how price moves to say an area like this, say 19,000. I look at the reaction at 19,000. If it's difficult for the sellers to go past an area like this, then it just tells me there's still a possibility for us to test 20,000 and for us to move to an area like this and test this recent highs. So long term for me on NAS100 is still for prices to go to the upside, and temporarily we could see pullbacks coming in. If these pullbacks are not impulsive, if the pullbacks come in correctively, then I'm still going to look for opportunities to buy. So unless this direction gets violated like properly, I'm still looking for opportunities to buy the NAS100. So I'm going to clean this and step down to say the 4-hour time frame, and let's see what's happening on the 4-hour time frame, and eventually we'll look at the hourly time frame. So let's say 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, the same trend I'm looking at on the 8-hour time frame. So we had prices moving up, there's a consolidation, which for me just seems like a pullback. Consolidation right here, price moving to the upside, and this is going to continue in this form like this. So you might see prices coming back to an area like this, and if we don't break like this area and see prices moving to the downside, then we could expect prices again to move to the upside, giving you the same pattern like this, consolidation, and you see prices moving again to the upside. And that's how easy it is when you're trading indices. But if for some reason we see a violation of this, and then we have to pause and wait a little bit and see what's happening on, say, the daily time frame, and reanalyze and look at everything, see what's happening if price gets to an area like 19,000. If it comes in impulsively and you see a break coming to the downside, then you might want to pull back a little bit with the buys, wait for a test of this, and then you look for sales as well. So But overall, like long term for me on NAS, I'm still holding this as a move to the upside. So I'm heavy on the buys on this pair on NAS100. And let's look at, say, the hourly time frame. So it's the same thing I'm looking at on the hourly time frame. I'm still expecting prices to move to the upside. I'm going to clean this. So expecting prices to move to the upside, and I'm studying these consolidations as well, because there's a lot of information you can take from consolidations, and I know there's a lot of people that don't trade when price is consolidating but then consolidations can tell you a lot. So if you look at this consolidation right here, pull back here, consolidation here, pull back here, you could see a consolidation here and a pullback to an area like this, and you see a burst to the upside. It's very possible this is something that repeats itself with indices and stuff like that. So overall for me, again, is just to see prices moving to the upside and maybe test an area like this, and we could see prices even moving higher than that. So that's what I'm looking at on NAS100. And let's look at, say, the S&P. So on the daily time frame on the S&P, this is quite similar to what's happening on NAS100. So the area I'm looking at, so the next target for me on the S&P is 5600, which is this area right here. So I'm looking at 5600, and also the possibility for prices to test this highs and even go higher than this. So this possibility, because right now my buyers on the S&P, NAS and US30 is to see prices moving to the upside. That's my buyers. Like long term, I'm still expecting prices to move to the upside, but temporal moves as well, we could see pullbacks coming in. If we get pullbacks coming in, say on the S&P, I'm looking at an area like 5500. So if the long-term buyers for me on the S&P is to see prices moving to the upside, I'm going to accept the pullbacks that's coming in, but I don't want to see pullbacks that come in like too deep, because then it makes it just changes everything. So if we get a pullback to 5500, looking at this run to the upside and a pullback to 5500, that's considerable. And if I get a pullback to an area like this, then I can look for buys to see prices going back to 5600, taking out these highs, and then long term to see prices moving again to the upside. That's something I can work with. But if it starts pulling back really deep, then we need to switch the analysis and see if there's just opportunities for us to take sales on this pair. So the S&P as well, I still have this position open on the S&P, so I'm still going to hold this buys on the S&P unless price proves otherwise. So let's look at, say, the 8-hour time frame. So there's a trend I'm looking on the 8-hour time frame as well. I'm looking at an area like this, so I'm going to keep buying the S&P unless this trend gets violated impulsively, taking out, say, an area like 5600, and we see prices coming down. If this happens, then I'm going to pause and see if there's a re-entry, if there's a possibility for sales. But long term for me on the S&P500 is to see prices moving to the upside, and a target like this to see if we can take out these highs. If we take out these highs, then there's a possibility for us to target, say, 5700, 5800, and see prices moving to the upside. So then how do we get involved in a move like this? You can look at, say, the 4-hour time frame. So if you step down to the 4-hour time frame, similar move to what's happening on the NAS100. Consolidation, pull back to this area, consolidation, pull back to this area, consolidation. If we get a pullback to an area like this, we could see prices moving again to the upside. Now, price is not moving to the upside because of the trend line, and price is not moving to the upside because of the psychological levels. No, price is moving because of fundamental reasons. But then when you combine these fundamental reasons and your pattern recognition abilities, then you can see certain things like this, and once you bring these two things together, it makes it easy for you to have this bias and these anticipations correctly. So I'm looking at this consolidation here, impulsive move. So all this is doing is price is just pulling back, and we're using this trend line just for the visual representation. So once this trend line gets violated, say we see prices moving to the downside, and that's a violation, and then I'm going to pause with the buys and probably look for sales or look for a possibility for price to reject at an area like this, and see maybe from the daily time frame if it's still possible for us to perform the buys. So right now I'm still holding this buys. If pullbacks come in, that's fine, so long as it doesn't break out of this trend line impulsively. Then I'll probably look for opportunities to scale in and look for buys again to the upside. And it's the same thing if you look at it on the hourly time frame. The difference is once you step down to the hourly time frame, you have more price action to work with. So let's say we're looking at the hourly time frame. So you see this on the hourly time frame. When you look at this on the hourly time frame as well on the daily time frame, you can appreciate this perfectly. So this area right here, 5400, you see we had this massive area to work with all the way to 5500. We had a pullback that came in. It didn't really test 5500. It was just a little bit shy of this area to test 5500, and we saw prices moving to the upside. So again, just like what was happening here, you could see this consolidation coming in. What's most important for me is just getting a test of this trend line and seeing how price is reacting from an area like this, because we could be sat, say, in a bigger consolidation on the hourly time frame, which is just like a pullback thing on the daily time frame. So if we see something like this on the hourly time frame with prices testing this and an inability to go past an area like this, then there's a possibility for us to buy to say 5600 and even see prices going higher to test an area like this and probably even go higher to make new highs. So that's what I'm looking at on the S&P 500. It's quite similar to what's happening on NAS100. So let's look at gold. So this one here, this is a pair where I have this kind of hate and love relationship with, because sometimes I get it really good and sometimes it troubles me as well. So of all the pairs I've been trading, gold is the only one that gives me a little bit of difficulties. So let's look at the daily time frame on this one. So just going off of what's happening on the daily time frame, last week I was expecting prices to dump or to sell, and that's why you see I had those selling opportunities. I had that sell opportunity on gold and it didn't work out well for me. But then just looking at it now from the daily time frame, I was quite wrong with my anticipation, expecting prices to sell, to test an area like this and even test areas like this. So right now what's happening on gold, if we look at it from the daily time frame, so we're going off of cycle levels right now. So I'm looking at an area like this, 2400. Once we had this inability right here, we had sellers coming in, there was an inability, sellers took prices all the way to 2400, and that was it. There was a cap at that point, and price went through 2400, impulsive reaction from the buyers, and we stayed above 2400, and right now we've tested 2500. So simple question again, if price holds at 2500, the next target for me is going to be 5600, say an area like this, and that's the next area for me where gold could probably get to. So how do we get involved on this? So now my bias on gold changes from what we had last week, and right now I'm looking at possibilities for buys again. So I'm gonna step down to like the 8-hour time frame and see what I can work with. Now let's look at the daily time frame. So we've had this conclusion from the daily time frame. Say if price is moving to the upside and we're reacting from 2500, so if price cannot go past 2500, I'm looking at an area like 2600. So if we stay above this point and there's that inability for sellers to take prices below this point, then we could see prices moving to 2600. So staying on the daily time frame, now I think we have a trend we can work with. So there's this possibility right here. So I'm looking at this area, and we could see prices continuing with this move all the way to 2600, to an area like this. That's the next target for me. So if price keeps holding at this point like this, we could see a pullback to this trend line. Let me just hold on. Yeah, let me zoom in on this one. Yeah, let me zoom in right here. So if price keeps consolidating at an area like this, difficulty was like, if there's this difficulty for sellers to take prices below this point, then you could see buyers coming in, and we see prices moving to the upside, pulling back, see prices moving to areas like this. So that's the possibility I'm looking at with gold, and I'm going to stick with this possibility like this unless prices prove otherwise. So let's say the sellers come in impulsively, because now there's a trend I can work with. But let's say sellers come in impulsively and we get a break of this point, and then I'm going to wait for a pullback to an area like 2500, and then we'll take prices down to 2400. But this hasn't happened yet, so I still have this bias from the daily time frame to see prices moving to the upside. I'm just going to respect this because it's easy if you're just going with the flow of what the big boys are trying to do. So let's see the 8-hour time frame. So on the 8-hour time frame as well, all we're looking at is this possibility for prices to move to the upside, and we're going over what's happening on the daily as well. We had prices pulling back to an area like this, taking this off, impulsive move to the upside, consolidation, pull back to this trend line, impulsive move. You could see a consolidation again and eventually consolidating like this, and you see prices moving again to the upside. So that's a possibility. Another possibility, because it's gold, you could see this price is just moving to the upside like this. So long term for me on gold again is just to see prices moving to the upside. Once we have pullbacks coming in, I'm gonna look for possibilities to hop in on buys again on this one. Now this depends on what's happening on the DXY. So if this guy keeps dropping, and because we're having a sink right now, we could see prices moving again to the upside. So that's a possibility for me on gold. So let's look at, say, the 4-hour time frame. I don't think there's a lot that we can look at right now. So price hasn't really pulled back. So when you look at the 4-hour time frame as well, I'm just waiting for pullbacks to come in. If we can get pullbacks coming in to an area like this, then we could look for buying opportunities. So long as price doesn't break out of this point impulsively, giving us a pullback possibilities for sales, then I'm still looking for possibilities to go long on this pair. If we have prices pulling back to an area like this, or just holding above this psychological level of 2500, then we could see prices moving to the upside. And the next area for me is 2600. I think that's quite easy. So let's see on the hourly time frame. Same thing on the hourly time frame. So it's not a lot I can do on gold right now. It's just long term for me on gold is to see prices moving to the upside, unless this trend line gets really violated. So long term for me on gold, be it to the hourly time frame, 4 hours, 8 hours, or the daily, it's just to see prices pulling back to the trend line. Possibilities for us to go long on this. And if this doesn't happen, let's say this gets violated, we'll wait for pullbacks maybe to an area like this, and then I'm going to reattempt the sales on this one. But if prices keep maintaining this move to the upside, then it's a buy for me. So let's just recap on this real quick. So if the DXY keeps moving to the downside, I'm looking for buys, or I'm going to continue with the buys on US30, NAS100, the S&P. I'm going to continue with these buys, and also buys on gold. If this, however, switches, say, from sells to buys, then this could probably give us opportunities to go, say, short on this one. Look for shorts on this if this trend gets violated. Look for shorts on this if this trend gets violated, and look for selling opportunities on the S&P as well if this trend gets violated. So that's what I'm looking at on this pairs, guys. So use the comment section, tell me what pairs you're looking at and what opportunities you're looking at for next week. And as usual, make sure you're patient, guys, with your analysis on everything. Stay consistent, and if you find this interesting, don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button. See you during the next one. Bye for now.